My purpose, your purpose, and our purpose. Hello, my name is Dominic Randolph, and I have the honor of serving as the head of school at Riverdale Country School in the Bronx in New York City, and as the global chair of the International Positive Education Network. So I thought I would share with you all today during Happiness Week and World Happiness Fest Education Day some thoughts. This is more of a rumination on positive education, on education to promote the development of a sense of purpose, and what I believe should be our positive education journey moving forward together. I've committed myself for the last 2 decades on thinking about how school culture can play a central role in having young people thrive. I've had the pleasure of working with researchers like Marty Seligman, Angela Duckworth, Ethan Cross. I've worked with educators around the globe, like Anthony Selden, Ann Johnston, David Levin. And we've all tried to figure out how can one translate research, current research, into practices in schools. I've enjoyed and profited from working with educators from IPEN, IPA, Character Lab, CASTLE, the Jubilee Center, and many other organizations across the globe in trying to enunciate hopeful, scientifically validated practices in schools and spread them broadly across all sectors of education. I've been happy seeing governments around the globe grappling with the problems of priorities and mental health, and seeing those governments start to pay attention to indices of thriving in their populations, and how that can make for happier people, better off people, and more freedom. These are all good trends, and yet it's hard to change the status quo in our schools and in our education systems. For many still, thinking about student flourishing is a sign that the school is not academically rigorous. There's also a sense that all of this is connected to personality and identity, and those very personal attributes should not be meddled with or imposed upon its students by schools. Given my experience as a head of school trying to change things by placing student thriving at the core of a school, here are my responses, my rebuttals to some of these points. Thriving, I believe, is a precondition for learning. Thriving is a precondition for learning. One can therefore make the argument, as Tony Wagner does, that rigor needs to be redefined in our schools, that good thinking and character development are closely entwined together and support one another. I also don't think that anyone is arguing for some sort of monolithic imposition of character strengths, but rather that we all find our own individual profiles or our own unique mix of character strengths that are the very foundations of our own individuality. Given that, I would like us to think about how we can take an idea that human flourishing should be at the center of schools, but also of workplaces and of our lives, and that thriving is a precondition for performing in challenging tasks and living the good life. If that's true, then how do we move in a direction personally and organizationally towards thriving? For Riverdale and for me, it's about purpose, developing a sense of purpose. I think that developing that sense of purpose is one of the best ways and sort of high leverage opportunities for schools, faculty members, staff, parents, and students. It's a collective and community endeavor. Purpose makes us feel alive. As Bill Damon and Kendall Bronk have shown us with their research, purpose creates flourishing humans. So here's a question for you. What is your purpose? I'd like you to think about that for a minute and maybe just scribble down some notes. I also want you to note that I'm asking you in the singular, so you to concentrate on trying to figure out, can you come up with a simple, singular purpose? I know that's not a simple question to answer. We often list off in response to a question like that, a number of different things we do that we find meaningful. But I would push you all to see if you can enunciate a single purpose that is all encompassing. My best attempt for this is this. I mean, it's a draft sense of it. I aim to help people learn well in order for them to find the freedom to learn and develop themselves. So I'll say it again. I aim to help people learn well in order for them to find the freedom to learn and develop themselves. This weaves my personal and professional lives together, right? So I think that I do this obviously at school, but I also, this is sort of my purpose with my family and friends. This makes me whole. So now I'd like you to think about a second question. How did you develop your sense of purpose? I guess what I'm trying to look at there, again, think about it a bit, but I'm trying to figure out, are there some moves that you made? Are there certain sort of contexts you sought out, people, models that you looked for to help you develop your sense of purpose? Just think about it and maybe write some notes for a few seconds. So let me share with you some of the things, the moves that I think I've been making, both personally, sort of out of experience, some of my work in schools, in a variety of different schools, but also informed by research. So I think that one of the first steps is you have to understand who you are and your, sort of individual mix of character strengths. I think that's sort of really important to understand, like, who you are and how do you play in the world. I also think you need to think about exploring and experimenting with different activities and different things that, provide you joy. And you have to sort of like find out which ones do give you joy and which ones do you want to persist in. Once you've found those sort of activities, I think you then end up developing some more specific goals about how you want to further yourself in that type of activity. So you develop those goals that are linked to that emergent purpose. And then while you're doing that, while you're thinking about goals, I think people also are finding that they need to find support and in their quest, and also looking for models of purpose in the activity that they're thinking of doing. Finally, I think people connect to others in that sense of purpose, since that's the only way that purpose becomes real and concrete in the world, through collaboration. These ideas are liberally inspired by psychologists such as Bill Damon, Kendall Bronk, Angela Duckworth, Marty Seligman, and Chris Peterson. And I'm grateful for their ideas, their research, and their support. The interesting question is, how do you take those ideas and then you operationalize them, either within your own life or in school environments, in school cultures? So I'd like to just share with you two different projects that we've embarked upon over the years, thinking about how we develop this sense of purpose in young people. The first one's the Purpose Project. We worked at Riverdale developing that with IDEO, this global design firm, and came up originally with an app, and then it developed more into a sort of online set of resources that are available now. And you can go to that address and look at those and see if there's things there that inspire you, if you're interested in this idea of purpose, education around a sense of purpose. The other one is NXU, which is a sort of boot camp for purpose that was developed by a group of people, including Norm Atkins, David Levin, and the folk from Transcend, to come up with sort of a way of orienting people to a sense of purpose in their lives when they're in schools. And right now, Yutaka Tamura is heading that, and they're doing really interesting things. So you might want to look at those for inspiration, because it might be something that will spark something in your work. These types of initiatives are great. And I'm very supportive, and I've been involved in trying to figure out different ways of having such initiatives work in schools. But is this enough, though? Many of us who are interested in positive education, positive psychology, and who want to see the research and ideas more manifest in our schools around the world have gone on journeys and in interesting directions. I have been focusing on the connection between character strengths and developing a sense of purpose, like a muscle, at Riverdale. Other schools have developed mindfulness practices to improve student well-being or changed, for instance, their health curricula to be infused with concepts from positive psychology. Positive education is indeed a broad tent. We don't really need a call to action in positive education, since many of us have taken action. There are many people and many institutions and many organizations inspired by and trying to implement elements of positive education. There are many schools that are trying to build a culture of strength-based positivity and social emotional complexity in their classrooms, on stages, on fields, in their corridors, and in their missions. What we do need to do is make this into a global movement. And I think we need to do that with 3 different moves. One, we need to continue to experiment and continue to practice, to research, to curate our findings and discuss their results openly amongst each other. And I think that's really, really important. And I know people have been doing that. We need to share freely what has worked in ways that document and show progress. We need to tell our stories in compelling ways, but they have a sort of edge to them that sort of say, okay, fine, this has worked really well, but this hasn't worked that well. And we think we need to sort out some of those practices globally and be able to share them and be able to say, okay, these are some that have real strength. Finally, we need to take these stories and join them together to make a sort of collage, to make in order that we can make a broad collective impact. As I've been very impressed by this term used by Kanye and Kramer about this concept of collective impact, that not one nonprofit, one organization is not going to be able to solve, let's say, a global problem, but it's going to take in some ways, a ecology of nonprofits and organizations and schools and researchers in order to make a really impact in the world. And I'm hopeful that we might be able to think about, what does that collective look like? How do we form that collective? How do we maybe give up some of our own agendas and territoriality in order to figure out a sort of movement that is joining forces across the globe? So how do we answer this call to collaborate? Well, you join IPEN, IPA, global organizations that are already available to help the story grow an audience across the world. We connect regionally with each other through organizations like PISA, UPenn, the US Pen, the Character Lab, CASTLE, etc. We continue to make our case that thriving needs to be at the center of schools by telling compelling stories propelled by authentic purpose. But I think the most important point is we have to figure out, how do we take all those different organizations and efforts and stitch them together in a way that would make this a true global movement? And I think that's the challenge. How do we collaborate to make this something that is easy to convey to people, that makes sense to everyone, and that everyone is willing to join into? So I want to thank you for your attention today. Please respond to the call to connect. I just thought I'd share with you some addresses and resources that you can help you do that. This is not an exhaustive list. This is by no means every organization. I think these organizations often have pointers to a lot of the others. And I think the question is, how do we converge some of these wonderful efforts that really are just seeking to make our schools and our world a place that promotes thriving in our young people. Thank you very much. I hope you have a good rest of the, enjoy all the rest of the presentations, and I really appreciate your attention. Thank you.
Dancing, I don't see the people live with them trouble, y'all. Dancing, I don't see the people live with them trouble, y'all. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
I was raised in the 80s, bricks in the place. These days were a madness, nights were just crazy. Looking back, grateful for the man that it made me. All about the future, but I reminisce daily.
Looking on the wall means something to me. Banging on the wood makes me feel better.
Wish I could go back. Dancing, I don't see the people live with them trouble, y'all. Dancing, I don't see the people live with them trouble, y'all. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Hola, soy Luisgallardo, el fundador de Worldhappiness Fest, y quiero invitarte a la Semana Mundial de la Felicidad, del 18 al 23 de marzo. Va a ser impresionante. 150 expertos de más de 45 países, anfitriones de Ágora, compartiendo qué va a ser el futuro de la felicidad. Porque como sabes, desde el Fest y desde World Happiness Foundation lo que queremos es crear un mundo con más libertad, con más conciencia y más felicidad. Y para eso te necesitamos. Hemos preparado una semana impresionante. Empezamos el 18 focalizándonos en felicidad en el trabajo. Pasamos a salud mental y física. Continuamos el día 20, que es el Día Internacional de la Felicidad, con educación. Continuamos con el planeta y el impacto social que cada uno de nosotros puede tener a pequeña escala o a gran escala. Y seguimos con las tecnologías de la transformación, esas tecnologías que nos están ayudando hoy a conectarnos y a poder conseguir cosas que antes eran impensables. Y terminamos el día 23 con felicidad gestionada desde las políticas públicas y el gobierno. Así que, como ves, una semana completa, llena de actividades en la que vamos realmente a crear el futuro de la felicidad. Pero para eso te necesitamos. Así que únete, worldhappiness.foundation, y te esperamos del 18 al 23 de marzo.
so relaxed. There is no time to waste.